and she has taught in places from Amarillo to London, United Kingdom. And Lindley is just a regular old parent here, and a business owner. Yeah, I know.
She wrote her own introduction.
I know, I'm not good with the introductions, but let's give a hand for our two guests tonight.
Thank you for having us. I emailed a little bit back and forth with Kevin about your format, and we've been doing this for weeks. Yeah, 2 months I think today. And so our format is that we speak for about 10 minutes, and if you have other questions, the flyers you're getting right now have our website, and you can go to the website and ask questions. We also have a forum coming up on April 24th. If you have questions, you can come to that, or our Facebook group. But anyway, I'll go ahead and get started. My name is Malin Henry, and I'm one of the co-chairs from the Moving Ahead PAC, as indicated by our shirts. I'm an LISD parent at Miller Elementary School. I'm also a former educator in Amarillo ISD and in Lubbock ISD, and I'm a community volunteer. I also want you to know that I am an interested, educated taxpayer and a parent who cares about resources being spent wisely to educate our children. Just with a show of hands, who here attended a public school prior to coming to Texas Tech? Great.
Okay. Well, I'm Lindley Herring, and I am a local business owner here. It's a regional business. We have I work for OfficeWise. It's an office furniture and supply company. And so we have an office here in Lubbock, in Midland, and Amarillo. I'm also a parent. I have two daughters in the LISD school system, Hutch and Roscoe Wilson. So we live in the district, obviously, and we attend those schools for the IB program, the Interbaccalaureate program. And so I'm a proud parent, and I'm here to just talk a few things about what this bond ensues, and that it is vital for the future of our district and of our city. We've been meeting with groups all over the city, like Malin said, basically promoting and advocating for the reinvestment into the core of the community of Lubbock, and that we ask for you to vote yes for Prop A. We wanted to start by giving you a little bit of background as to what all went into this and why the bond passed back in February by the Board of Trustees at LISD. So Malin and I were both on a committee that got together, and we spent countless hours prioritizing the issues that needed to be fixed or repaired or thought about with all of the campuses within LISD, and it totaled to about $400 million. So we had to prioritize, and they got 100 community members that included parents, leaders in the community, business owners, some students that came, and so we all met 8 different meetings, I think, to talk about what all needed to be considered within this bond package that we would like to put together and propose to the school board. So because some of the buildings within LISD are older than others, 63% of our buildings are 60 years and older. So 63%, think about that. So they need maintenance, and they need attention. So I already said that. All of the upgrades and improvements on these efficiencies can be done with no tax rate increase. So LISD, we have a commitment of paying off our debt very respectfully and being good stewards of our money from our taxpayers. So we actually pay off debt early. So we're able to bring on this additional debt at no tax rate increase. The maintaining tax rate is at 17.5 cents, and so they are going to keep that commitment. The school district is keeping that commitment. So through effective financial management, LISD has been able to pay down their bonds quickly. We do have the lowest tax rate in Lubbock County, and their tax rate it's been the lowest since 1993, which is how many years ago? 32 years ago. So that's pretty remarkable. Other districts in the county have significantly higher tax rates, many over Ours is at 90.8 cents, and there are others that are over $1. So regarding the tax rate, spending and debt, I did want to address one thing, that we do have a low debt per student ratio because they have been paying off these bonds at a good rate over the course of the years. So one thing that I know that when businesses are looking to come to Lubbock, one of the questions that they ask is, did Lubbock ISD pass their most recent bond? Because they know how important that is to bring trade schools into Lubbock and to continue to maintain those programs, because like Leprino, for instance, was a very good example. Leprino Cheese Factory, they wanted to make sure that the 2018 bond passed because they were able to bring, they know the future of Lubbock is going to be supported by the school district. So I think that might be, there are new, so in the bond package, I'll talk about a few things that's in the $290 million bond package. 3 new elementary schools, one that's gonna be centrally located, one east of Avenue Q, and one on the west side. So, and one on the north side as well. Malin will elaborate on those in a minute, but all these upgrades to include middle school auditoriums, middle school science labs, a science wing addition at Adkins Memorial Middle School, a kitchen cafeteria expansion at Rush Elementary, an expansion of the CTE courses at the Byron Martin Advanced Technology Center. And these expansions include in the welding department, in the welding profession, culinary arts, and health professions. So in addition are some restroom and locker room upgrades, safety and security measures, and some capital improvements. And so Malin will now talk about school spending and some of the school efficiencies that will go into this.
Thank you. So school districts spend money out of 2 buckets. One bucket is maintenance and operations, or M&O, and that is the money the state gives based on a formula. And that goes to things, you have a handout that has the buckets in it, that goes to things like teacher salaries, that's 80% of it. It also, you can pay fuel, utilities, supplies, and operations. I love that. The other bucket of money is INS, interest and sinking, and that is the bond bucket. So when a school district, like many of the districts that you all attended prior to coming to Texas Tech, passes a bond election, the money from that goes into a separate bucket of money. It cannot be used for salaries. It can only be used for the projects that are in the bond. So it's very important to understand the difference of buckets of money for school finance. Let's think about the older buildings. Lindley had told us that 63% of Lubbock ISD's buildings are over 60 years old, and some are even closer to 80 years old. So this is why having efficient and effective schools matters, because you're talking about older buildings that require a lot of maintenance. For example, there's a building on the east of Avenue Q right now, it's over 80 years old, it has a boiler and chiller that's gonna cost $5.3 million to fix it, and that's just to maintain it. That's just an example. Some of the schools that are being closed down are small because the birth rate is down. The birth rate is down 50% east of University, 50% north of Marcia Sharp. The birth rate's down all across Lubbock except for in Wolfforth, Texas. The birth rate is also down all across our state. So several school districts across the state are having consolidations, just like we are. I mentioned the birth rate and I mentioned consolidations, and I'm going to talk about the 3 schools because I think it's really important you understand the 3 elementary schools. But first I want to tell you something about my family. Our children transferred into a school that was consolidated in 2010. I did not live here in 2010 to vote in that bond election, but it consolidated 2 small campuses into a larger campus. It's Miller Elementary in the Melanie Park neighborhood. Prior to that passing, Murphy Elementary was a very prized and precious school. 75% of the students had to transfer in because the attendance zone was very small. There weren't very many kids in the neighborhood. Now, it's a school serving 700 students. It is a thriving, growing neighborhood. When you drive through Melanie Park, you wouldn't know had it ever been any different, because as long as you've been here, it's been full of children, a big neighborhood, people move in there because they want to go to the school. Our family purposely transfers into that school because being at a bigger school is important to me as a former educator and as a mom. Our neighborhood school is a great school. It's smaller, has fewer teachers per grade level, and it doesn't offer any additional programming because it doesn't have the funds. So when you combine a school and make it a little bit bigger, there is some additional programming. I'm going to tell you some numbers about that. If a school has fewer than 350 students, it costs the district $6,500 to maintain that building. Per student, thank you, per student. When you combine and you have a school of up to 700 students, the cost is $4,800 per student. So we've done two things by consolidating. We've increased the experience for students. There's more teachers per grade level. The planning is shared. We've also added more wraparound services. So some schools may be sharing a counselor. But when you combine schools, you can have a counselor all to yourself at the school. You can also add other things. Depending on your funding from Title I funding, you could maybe add Spanish or an extra art class or something else special. In addition, a lot of schools that are a big size, every school, has some additional program. The newest elementary is Carmona Harrison on the north side. It combined 3 small elementary schools into one, and they're an agri-STEM campus. So those students learn agriculture and STEM, and they're prepared for what's coming in middle school and high school in the new agri-STEM campus in North Lubbock as well. Other campuses are dual language. The campus my child attends is Project Lead the Way, which is a STEM-based campus. And those programs are only available because it's a bigger school that has more funding and there's deferred cost. When you're not paying $6,500 a student, you can take that money and allocate it into something else to add to the student experience. Let's look at the 3 elementary schools that are being replaced, that are being consolidated. Bean and Hodges, east of Avenue Q. That will be a dual language campus. It's already dual language at Bean. When they combine, it will still be dual language. The maintenance on those 2 buildings, because they are very old, is expensive. Replacing that building does exactly what I've just explained. It gives a new building and it defers that maintenance. We take McWhorter and Wolford on the north side. McWhorter is another dual language campus in Lubbock ISD. McWhorter is a new, very full school, 97% capacity. It is on a tiny plot of land. Their students walk across parking lots to get into the portables. The cafeteria is about the size of this room, and lunch takes 3.5 hours to get through because there's only 1 serving line. There's no room to add on to that building. It's over 80 years old. It would be so hard to add on. Less than a mile from McWhorter is Wolford Elementary at 50% capacity. Why? Because the birth rate is down. So that school is very inefficient. But combining those schools that are so close together and building a new campus, you have a bigger cafeteria, you have more services for students. There's something for the neighborhood to be very excited about a new school in their area. The last campus is Williams and Stewart along 50th. And those 2 campuses combined have maintenance at $29 million over the next 10 years. When you consider the cost of a new school is just over $40 million, it makes a lot more sense to put a new school and combine those 2 and again allow them to have a campus with 700 students. Something else I want to say about what's in the bond is the middle schools. Having those middle school auditoriums upgraded is a great help to allow the middle school students opportunities. It's not just fine arts, but it's parent meetings, it's community meetings. Fine arts spaces will be upgraded as well as science labs. And last is the CTE program. Lindley referred to what will be replaced in those, or what will be upgraded in those programs: welding, culinary arts, and health professions. One thing I want to say is I was touring the Byron Martin ATC. Have any of you been out there on 19th? Yeah, it's a really incredible campus. I was doing a tour out there a few weeks ago and went into the class where the ambulance is. It's for seniors only, and they graduate with an EMS certificate. And the teachers said to me, the first thing he wanted me to see was that they had a brand new stretcher. And he said, this stretcher is so important because it's an electric stretcher, and for 10 years our students have been training on the manual stretcher, which they need to know, but they're not going to encounter it much. And for them to be fully prepared with an EMS certificate to go straight into the workforce, they need to train on the right equipment. And that's it. That's why health professions is in this bond, to upgrade so that the students of Lubbock ISD are learning on the most up-to-date equipment and they're ready to go right into the hospital, into welding, into culinary arts, where there are all shortages across our city and across our state. Obviously, Lindley and I are very fond of Prop A. We've invested a lot of time and energy. We've spent a lot of time looking at the bond and talking about the bond. We've had great support from the community in all areas, all walks of life. It's got something for everyone, and we're very glad to have the opportunity to talk with you today. Thank you for having us.
Any questions, y'all?
I do have some actually.
We'll take 2 questions. We have another place to speak, so
Okay.
I can take 2.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
the second one after.
go ahead. Well, I have just a fairly simple question.
Sure.
So, part of the process with this bond is that some of these schools will be demolished, and we were going to be building newer schools, of course, like you said, with newer equipment and whatnot. But inevitably, these schools are going to be more crowded, especially when the future comes to pass and whatnot. So, how are we going to ensure that these teachers who are already overwhelmed with these large class sizes aren't going to be even more overwhelmed, and that these students are going to actually be receiving a quality education?
Can you
Elaine,
explain?
Can I take that question?
Sure.
You're okay. Nancy Sharp, I'm a member of the Board of Trustees, so I'm delighted to answer that question. When we have laws in the state of Texas that you have a 22-to-1 ratio in classrooms. So when we combine into bigger schools, the class ratio stays the same. So it's still 22-to-1. So it's not expanding the number of students. What it does do is gives teachers more people to collaborate with. In a small school, you have 2 teachers, as Malin said, and there's not a lot of sharing, and there's not the after-school running club and the chess club and those sorts of things, because there's just not enough capacity. When you have 4 or 5 teachers in a grade level, many more people with whom you can collaborate and provide students more opportunity. So our class size will not change. If you're in a school right now that's got 200 students or 300 students, I think that's our smallest school. Yeah, there may be some classes that are smaller than 22-to-1, but we will not exceed that class size ratio. So I want to assure you of that. And Joanne, I just want to say this while I'm before. This is not contentious. It's not. Deanne and I have known each other for 20 years since I was a staffer for U.S. Senator John Cornyn. So it's not contentious. We have a difference of opinion, but we appreciate the opportunity to have an exchange about differences of ideas. So we are glad to be here.
And I've known
What are we doing
Deanne.
about the kids after school activities that won't be able to have transportation getting back home?
Okay, I'd love to answer that question. So first of all, these schools are less than a mile apart. The district provides transportation if you're more than 2 miles from your home, from your campus, in your attendance area. Also, if there's a major thoroughfare. So for instance, if there's, when you built Anita Carmen Harris School, there is a freeway dividing some of the students, so the district provides transportation. It's just a matter of reworking the routes. The cost is nominal because we've already got buses and routes established. So that is
Is that
not.
happening even now? Because
Oh,
my
sure.
son goes to Monterey, he can't stay for after school.
Where's he
activity.
zoned?
You
can talk to your principal. He's not zoned and you choose to go to Monterey. That's
No,
a
no, no,
different
it's
story.
his district.
It's his district.
Yes.
Talk to your principal, but for elementary school students, transportation, more than 2 miles from their house.
It is a contentious topic though, I mean, in the community
Well,
itself.
I think when you said,
But
or
I
you
don't,
know
I
this.
never
Yeah,
thought that it was.
yeah, I'm just saying that we are not, we appreciate the opportunity to have a dialogue. And I met with Deanne 10 days after we called for this bond. We've known each other a long time. Lindley worked for Congressman Arrington. We've been in Lubbock area Republican women for years together. So we know each other, and it's just a difference of opinion, so.
One more question for me.
Well, I
Why
think
do
we're
you
gonna
guys
ask
Randall,
from the
let's get Randall on this real
students.
quick.
Yeah.
Randall, go ahead.
Randall. I'm actually from California. I came to Texas when I was about 11 years old. I went to public school in California and here. I personally believe a lot in the importance of public education. I don't think, I personally agree with the push by Abbott to make private schools a bigger part of Texas education. And so I think the bond thing is really neat. But coming from California, I'm familiar with how government programs end up overrunning costs and being money pits that the state can't really keep track of. You know, we paid to have our water reservoirs filled up 10 years ago. The fires broke out. There was no water available. I went to a public school that ended up having to pay for mobile homes as classrooms as a stopgap measure, and then they never did anything beyond that. And so, what I wanted to ask you was, I may be mistaken, but I thought that in the literature that you proposed, that you gave us, mentioning the construction of the 3 new schools, there wasn't a specific cost given to the construction of those buildings. So I just wanted to ask, what can you tell us about ensuring that the money being used, that will be allocated, $290 million, will be used effectively and the project won't go over budget and end up being delayed or incomplete?
Absolutely. So 290 million is what the bond is, and it cannot be more. And those projects that are on there will be a bond review committee that meets regularly. It's community citizens. My husband's been on one before. We already have a couple of people asking to be on this one for that exact reason. The review committee knows the projects that are assigned, and they get an update at all of their meetings of what projects are being done. I actually spoke at the 2018 final review committee when they closed out. The projects had been done, but they were having one final meeting to show everyone. And all the projects are done. They have budget items. You can see the finance of it and how much it cost, when it was done. It's not a secret. This is taxpayer money. Yeah.
My solid question for this is that you said that they said no more than $290 million. And when was this exactly, did they say this? Do you remember when
The
they
bond
said
was
the bond?
called on February 13th.
Because what I'm seeing is that on January 8th, and I got some notes down, that they said 178.3 million was it. And they added up.
That actually was not what was said. We were on the committee that met all 4 months, and we looked at all the projects of the district. We had a very high voting threshold, that whole committee. It's probably not worth me explaining, but it had to be a super majority of tables. 8 out of 10 had to agree on a project, so they could get a super majority and rank the projects. The 173 million was what came up automatically.
Okay.
Without those passed the 8 out of 10 vote from all the
Got
tables
us to
from
the
all.
290.
And then the district, which we knew from all along, because our committee didn't make that call of what went into the bond. The board of directors did. So they had looked at projects, they've been in the meetings, and so then they looked at the ranking of the projects. So for example, there were 2 options in that meeting for Williams and Stewart Elementary.
Mhm.
One of them was to replace Williams and Stewart at 42 million. One of them was to repair it at 27 million. Those ended up at like a 6-person vote and a 4-person. I don't remember how it went, but everybody voted to do something to that campus, but neither one got to the 8 out of 10 majority. So the board of directors knew this campus is a priority. There's a lot of money in at Stewart, and it's very small. So they knew this is a priority, something's gonna be done. So they looked at all the options.
Can I ask a question? What measures are being taken place so that our money is actually spent efficiently for Prop A?
Can you?
What measurements are y'all taking to make sure that our money is actually going towards some efficient thing, not just lost in bureaucracy waste?
Bonds have to be spent the way that they say they're gonna be spent. So
Yeah.
they have an outline on X amount of dollars have to go here, and you have to follow what you tell the taxpayers you're gonna do.
Because another thing too is when you are putting money towards something, regardless or not, you don't know exactly where that is going. And as someone who pays my own bills, like students like us, we all pay our own bills. I know with inflation and high living costs, what would you tell families why they should spend that extra money and go for Prop A?
I can tell you something exactly, because inflation has impacted the school district as well. And so when you consider the money they get from the state, that's a capped amount. There's not been an increase since 2019. Even if there had, inflation is still an issue. So let's take the school district's property taxes. 10 years ago, those were $300,000 for all of Lubbock ISD's property taxes. Today, they're $5.2 million. So So the amount of, the inflation has also impacted the district significantly. And so the money out of maintenance and operations, just like your budgets that you have in your families, that bucket over here in maintenance and operations only goes so far. And so they've stretched it, I mean, they've prioritized staff salaries. Our staff is our greatest resource in educating our students. So they've prioritized that. But they have cut back, they've been lean, they're monitoring, that's why they're trying to make these schools more efficient, because the cost of operating a school that's only half full is inefficient, plus doing the repairs on it, not upgrading it, not making it better, but just keeping up with those repairs is expensive. But when you consolidate and have a school that's more energy efficient, it's more efficient personnel wise, and it's better academically for students. No-brainer. Okay, last question, and then we've got to go. Yeah.
First of all, I want to say I'm a big proponent of STEM and trade programs and stuff like that, so I have no problem with that idea. My main question stems from the use of the money.
Sure.
So I'm holding in my hand right here the campaign finance report that shows $80,000 were raised by mostly builders, engineers, construction companies that are going to gain from this project. So they stand to get money directly from this bond. There's not a lot of teachers and small donations on there, so I have a two-part question. Should be simple to answer. It says, why does LSD board override their own future focus committee's recommendation of $178.3 million for the bond and add an additional $111 million, mostly for maintenance and safety, and then finance it for 30 years? That's what bonds are, they're finance costs, okay? And then, so my question really is, how can taxpayers trust this process when the very people that are funding this thing, which you say you represent, so that's why I'm asking you, have so much to gain? HVAC companies, basically it's the banks, it's everybody that's gonna fund and make a lot of money off this, are the only ones really funding it. So,
Well, you'll see our finance report.
it's right here,
No, I'm talking about the
16
next.
pages.
Yeah.
You know, I'm talking about the next one that comes out, and the smaller donations on there from teachers, from parents. But I've also already addressed that what the Future Focus Committee approved and why, and how that vote happened with the 8 out of 10 tables. We
Right, but
knew-
why are we financing maintenance though? That's not that's like a general fund situation.
It is, but when you consider inflation, it's just like we talked about.
I do understand inflation, but why should we finance inflation for 30 years?
So the district is paying teachers, or the $5.3 million boiler and chiller at Bean. There's so much because the buildings are, Lubbock ISD is older than Texas.
Right.
Yeah,
But-
but the life cycle of those items, of a heater, HVAC system, the life cycle of a roof, it's 20, 25 years, and we've been paying off bonds early. We have not really.
Right, but bonds are for infrastructure.
Yeah,
So,
that's exactly what
so
we do.
like roads or whatever you want to do, right? So if you're going to build new buildings, I'm for that, but why add in the maintenance costs and everything else
No, she's.
and finance it out?
This is for the new buildings. She's comparing the cost of the new buildings versus fixing the current.
And
one
Well,
we have.
it was 178, I'm not trying to talk about it, it was $178.3 million, and then 111 got added for safety
No,
and,
no, no,
and
No,
ma-
there
maintenance.
was capital
Two
improvement
schools.
in that 100, two
Yeah,
schools
two
were added
schools.
in by the board.
Yeah, we
So
added
that's an
two.
extra 84 million right there.
It was
So-
just one school, we added 2 more.
So one or two schools?
Three.
Three.
Three total.
The
Going once.
committee voted for one school,
Okay.
knowing
Let's
that.
start over. Okay, so $111 million was added for 3 schools? So
No.
we're getting 3 new schools for
We're
that?
getting 3 new elementary schools. The committee had the super
Yeah, three
vote,
schools.
the super majority vote for one
Yeah,
campus.
three new schools.
The other
And they're shutting
campus
down
that I
5 or
referred
6.
to was split over repair it or replace it. And then the other campus was a consolidation that was happening. So the committee recommended one, and the board came, we gotta go. The board, added in 2 more. And so that added 84 million.
So you're
With the
saying there
committee-
is no maintenance
Yeah, the
and
committee
safety in this
No,
because the state's about to fund that kind of stuff.
No,
So I want to know why put it on our tax bill.
The committee approved some maintenance. It was in the committee report, the 173 million. We
Yeah,
did have that.
173 million.
Yes, but then there's 84 million additional in the schools that the board approved.
Yeah, and it's all all in that document, it shows the amounts for everything.
They were,
Yeah.
No, she was handing it.
Oh, did you not have one of those? Oh,
The cost of trying to maintain it versus long-term, like what's gonna be better, the cost of trying to maintain these buildings or long-term is it better to just
Yeah.
build these new buildings, like the efficiency of these buildings?
Exactly.
Combined services, like my children go to the school in the neighborhood that we all try to live in, and they don't get to participate in UIL activities at the school because we do not have the faculty and staff. Whereas their children transfer to other schools that are larger, and they have the opportunity to participate in 12 clubs that aren't even offered at my kids'
The
school.
budget
Change
is
multiple times.
for your cost more of efficiency,
Right.
so over the long term.
And cost avoidance.
Exactly.
Yeah, the cost avoidance of long term because some of these old things they don't make anymore, so it would
Yes.
probably increase.
yes.
Right,
It's
if
not
you
a-
have
it's not
new
a-
tires on a car that's got an engine that's bailing wire together.
What
That's the
about
point that you're trying to
buildings
get to.
in north, east of university?
There is.
All in northeast, Lubbock specifically.
Yeah, I know you're
Yeah,
good.
I represent 1,000 taxpayers, so I really.
There's really no elementary in northeast Lubbock.
Yeah, we go to new school in
Thank you.
2012.
Unbelievable.
Brand new school.
Good job.
Thank you, we appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.